And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed. To you it shall be for food. Genesis 1:29. Man did eat angels' food. He sent them meat to the full. Psalm 78:25. Everyday Manna with Lisa.
Hi everybody, and welcome to Everyday Manna. Today we are going to make a Mexican bean soup, a homemade chive bread to go alongside the soup, and then as an appetizer we're going to make a delicious, easy artichoke spread that you can serve with crackers or Melba toast or anything like that. But we're going to get started on the bread because that needs to go into the oven. Now this is not a yeast bread, this is a quick bread. Couldn't be simpler. Let's move this out of the way so you can see. In this big bowl, I have about 1.5 cups of self-rising flour. I don't often use self-rising flour, but sometimes in my quick bread recipes I do. This is some salt and a little bit of an odd ingredient for bread, but this is dry mustard. And I just want to whisk that together to get all of the salt and the dry mustard powder incorporated. Then I'm going to set that to the side, and I have 2/3 of a cup of milk and 1 egg. And what I'm going to do is just beat that egg into the milk with a fork. Then I'm going to stir in some butter that I have melted. Then we're going to put the wet ingredients into the dry. Now, depending on the humidity of the day, you really might need to add a tiny bit more flour or liquid. You just kind of gotta, this is, you know, it really does depend on the humidity in your room. It's not an exact science, but I'm going to show you what the texture should look like. And you probably won't. It just depends. Because honestly, flour will absorb liquid differently depending on the humidity. Now I've got some grated cheddar cheese. Now I want to reserve a little bit of this cheese to sprinkle on the top. So I'm just gonna fold in the rest. This is perfect. Don't need to add anything else except the chives because this is chive bread. I've got some fresh chives here and I want about 3 tablespoons. If you don't have chives, which if you don't know, chives have a mild onion flavor. If you do not have chives, you could put finely chopped scallion tops. The flavor won't be exactly the same, but it'll be close. I want about 3 tablespoons or so of freshly chopped chives. It's a very mild onion flavor. That's, you know, doesn't have to be exactly 3 tablespoons, just approximately, and that looks about right. Because that is a big flavor of this bread, and you want to fold those in. Now I have beside me here an 8-inch square baking pan that I have just taken some butter and went on the sides and cut a piece of parchment paper and put that, down there. And I'm actually going to spray the parchment with a non-stick baking spray just to make sure that that releases. And then I'm going to put this in the dish. You could make biscuits out of this too if you wanted to. You could just, drop mounds on a piece of parchment paper and bake them. Or you can do it like I'm doing it and make the bread, the loaf bread. I'm actually going to cut this into squares and then into triangles. It's a stiff dough, but that's what you want. We're going to just spread that out evenly. Oven is at 375 degrees. And we're going to put this in for about 30 minutes. Look at the knife's actually going to do a little better on that. That spatula's a little big. Kind of spread it out to an even plane, and then take that reserved cheddar cheese. If you wanted to use Monterey Jack or Colby, you could. I'm just using sharp cheddar. And that's it. And then this goes into the oven for approximately 30 minutes. You'll want to check it. I'll show you how to check it. You're just going to insert a toothpick or a wooden skewer into the center, and if it comes out clean with no moist pieces attached to it, then you know your bread is done. But it takes about 30 minutes. I'm just going to take a quick break, get this in the oven, and when I come back, we're going to start on the soup, and we will get the artichoke spread ready to go in the oven alongside the bread. I'll be back in just a minute. All right, now our bread is in the oven, and we are going to make a very, very easy dip to go alongside our dinner. Now in this bowl, I've got 2 cups of mozzarella cheese that I've shredded. I've got 1 cup of mayonnaise. Then I've got a cup of Parmesan cheese shredded, but I'm going to reserve a little bit of that for the top. A little bit of garlic powder. And then I have 1 can of artichoke hearts that I have drained. And I'm actually going to chop these up, and I need a bigger knife. I'm going to chop these up. Artichoke hearts come in either canned or frozen. The frozen I find are a little bit harder to find, but the canned ones are simple to find. They're easy. Be sure you don't get the seasoned kind. Some of them are marinated, and you don't want the marinated ones. You just want plain artichoke hearts. And because I have them here, you don't have to do this part, but because I have them, I'm going to add some chives to it because I got them, and they're delicious. So I'm just going to mince up a couple of tablespoons of these. Because it'll just add some flavor. Okay, now we're going to stir all that together. This is an easy, easy dish. We're going to stir that together. I have a small baking dish here, a little small glass dish. You could use a pie plate. I am just going to mix this up thoroughly. That cheese will melt and it'll just become so good and gooey. I love warm dips. All right, we're just going to put this in this baking dish, and this recipe is easily doubled, or even tripled if you're serving a big crowd. This would make an excellent dip for a buffet bar. And you could put it on like one of the little warmer tray things with the little, you know what am I thinking of? The little warmer chafing dishes. That's it. Or even keep it in a crock pot if you wanted to, a small crock pot. Just pat it out. Remember that reserved Parmesan cheese? We're going to put that on top. And this needs to bake for about 30 minutes, so we're going to put it inside the oven along with our bread. So let's go get this in the oven, and then we will start on our soup. So we're just going to let those 2 bake in the oven. Now I have a large soup pot here, and I've got about a pound, a little over a pound, but not much over, of lean ground beef, and I'm going to brown this in my soup pot. And this is one that if you wanted to brown off the beef and then put every bit of this in a crock pot, you could. Now I don't like to put the raw meat in the crock pot. I like to brown that first. But if you wanted to just put it all in the crock pot, you could. Now, this is a Mexican bean soup. So I've got, lots of veggies that are going to go in there. We've got some green pepper and onion to start with. While that's browning, let's get our green pepper going. Use a little small paring knife to get the seeds out, those membranes. Remember what I've always told you, cut your peppers from the inside out, because the outside, for you new cooks out there, this part has naturally occurring, it's not something the grocer puts on there, a thicker, almost like a skin, if you will, and it's just much easier to cut the pepper from the inside. You want to cut it into bite-sized pieces. I love green pepper. And this is a flavor that's very, very prominent in Mexican and Tex-Mex type cooking, Southwestern cooking, chilies and peppers. Oops, missed one there. You could add, if you really like peppers, you could by all means add another one if you wanted to, or mix like a red with the green, would be delicious. Now I've got, excuse me, one onion. This happens to be a Vidalia onion because they're in season now, but if you don't have a Vidalia onion, just a regular yellow or white or even red onion would be fine. But when the Vidalias come into season, I use them all the time. I love them cooked. If you don't know that about me, I do not like raw onions. I don't know why, but I don't. But I adore cooked onions. So I'm going to just cut this into bite-sized pieces. I hear my beef sizzling, so we'll check that in just a second. You can do all this part while your beef is browning. Get your vegetables chopped. You will find that most soups, not all, but most soups start with onion because it adds such a wonderful flavor profile to the soup. So let's check our soup. Our meat is browning up. You could absolutely substitute ground turkey or ground chicken in this if you wanted to. It's such a hearty soup, such a hearty flavored soup, that you've got so many other flavors in there. If you wanted to use ground turkey or ground chicken, you could. That would be fine. I'm just going to let this brown. I'm not going to do anything else. I'm going to take a quick break, wash up here, and get those dishes in the sink. And when I come back, we'll finish off the soup and our bread and our dip, and then we'll get to eat. I'll be back in just a minute. All right, now our beef is browned, and I'm just going to add the onion and the green pepper. And I'm gonna add some carrots, 3 carrots that my little nephew Elijah peeled for me so expertly. He loves to peel. He did a great job. Let's get those going. I hear the beef. I want pretty substantial size pieces in here. I don't want them so tiny that I don't know I'm eating a carrot. All right, now we're gonna add our carrots. Stir that all together. Woo. Let's add some garlic, some cumin, some paprika and chili powder. I like to add my spices, you know, as I do, before I add my oils or my waters. Stir them around. Now I have a box of beef broth. Turn that down a little bit. I added a whole box. Then I'm gonna add 1 can of black-eyed peas that I have not drained, 1 can of fire-roasted diced tomatoes, and 1 can of hominy that I did drain. And I used the golden, but you could use white or golden, either one. I'm gonna stir all that together. Oh, looks delicious. I'm gonna add a little bit of water. Keep some water on the side in case you want it a little thinner, and I do want it just a little bit. So I'm gonna add probably a cup or so of water. I'm gonna let that come up to a simmer while I chop up the final ingredient for our soup, which is some cabbage. I have a small head of cabbage here. You can add as much or as little cabbage as you want. I happen to adore cabbage. It's one of my favorite things to eat. Now what I do is I cut it in half, then in quarters, and then take a little knife and cut out that core. And then you can chop your cabbage into smaller pieces. I love cabbage. Cut it like that, and then again into pieces. I think we need it all. Let me stir this in and then we'll see. And just add that, and then that just needs to simmer. Stir in half the head and then decide how much more I want to add. Because I love cabbage. Actually, I think I'll add the other half. So we're just gonna chop up the other half and then add that to our soup. We just need to let that simmer. All right, now our bread is done, and I took it out of the glass pan because you want to get it out fairly quickly so that it doesn't continue to bake, because that's hot. I wanted to show you what you do is take a toothpick, insert it in the center, and I usually will do 2 or 3 different places. And when it comes out clean like that, then you know your bread is done. And so I'm going to cut this into squares. And then I'm going to cut each square using a serrated knife into like a triangle. That's the way I do it. I want to show you. There is your wonderful chive bread. So you want to serve that alongside your wonderful dip here. This is our delicious, delicious artichoke dip bake that we put in the oven. Remember, we mixed in some mayonnaise, some mozzarella cheese, some Parmesan cheese, chopped up artichoke hearts, and mixed all that together. And I sprinkled in a few little chives because I had them. You don't have to add the chives, but I had them, so I did. And this makes a wonderful, bubbly, hot dip. And I serve it alongside just some crackers, but you could serve it with like Melba toast or anything, you know, any kind of a cracker, tortilla chip, anything like that. And that mozzarella is so gooey. We need to taste it, make sure it's okay. Oh my goodness. You can make a meal just off that. That is so good. Our soup is done. I just want to eat that dip. I did add in just a little bit of salt and pepper. And I'm going to serve this up. You could put this in your crock pot if you wanted to. Oh, I love cabbage. I added a lot of cabbage. I put that whole head in there. If you don't like that much cabbage, you don't have to put that much, but I love it. And there's our wonderful soup with our bread to go alongside it and our delicious artichoke bake. And there is a quick, easy meal that would be great for any night of the week. It does not have to be cold weather to have soup. I eat it year round. I love it. It's an easy thing, and you could totally brown that beef and then put everything in the crock pot, put it on low while you're off at work or whatever you're doing, and then when you come home, it will be done. Or you can do it and let it simmer for like 30 to 45 minutes on the stove. Either way would be delicious. And your wonderful little homemade quick bread to go alongside, and our delicious artichoke bake. There are some quick, easy recipes for you. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time on Everyday Manna.
Thank you for watching Everyday Manna with Lisa. This program is made possible by viewers like you. Your support is continually needed to keep Christian programming on the air. Please send your best financial gift to Living Faith Television in care of Everyday Manna, P.O. Box 1867, Abingdon, Virginia 24212.